stew with Big Meach. It's time to stew with Big Meach. It's time to stew.
And hello there, everyone. How are you? This is Demetrius Big Meach Taylor, and you're dishing tea with Big Meach right here and right now. To all of you who are looking at this on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever other social media platform that this is appearing, I'm coming to you because I wanted to have my particular commentary on a wonderful, what I think is a beginning discussion dialogue that The Guardian had put out about HIV awareness and infection. I saw a few of my friends up in that video, and I think that the video is a wonderful beginning to have this conversation. However, I wanted to come to you because there were a few things that I think that they left out of the discussion, and I think hopefully they will want to pick up or at least investigate and give a different side of the coin or whatever, as far as how we as Black or African American people here in the United States can curb our infection rates. I think there's a couple of areas that we're not looking at, and also I had to educate myself on something, because at first when I was going to do this, I was a little pissed because I thought that the information that was given was a little inaccurate. But I had to go and do some research on my own to find out that there was absolutely, according to the science, that it's true. But it has broadened my perspective and given me another way to look at these particular things that were discussed in the issue. Now, before I get started at the point that I think were missed, I want to challenge a point. This child know I'm always challenging him, because y'all know that Walter Lee Hampton II was featured in this particular documentary, or this little expose video. And I'm going to challenge him, as I always do, because it's not that I don't think that his argument had merit, because I think he comes from a place that most people come from. I have a friend of mine who calls him that pseudo-heterosexual stance, because for those of you who know, Walter comes across very, 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 very anti-gay. He claims he's an openly gay Black man, but a lot of his commentary comes across as anti-gay or anti-Black man or anti-Black LGBT. And it's a little disheartening at times to swallow his brand of medicine or whatever. At the same time, I do want to be as objective as possible, because I just don't want to slam him, because I think he has merit. But I think, as we all do when we espouse our opinions, most of the time we espouse only what our opinions are. We don't want to be forthcoming in showing a more objective opinion or an objective view, because we want our opinion to be the major objective. You know what I'm saying? And oftentimes when we disagree with something, or if we believe that our opinion is the forthcoming opinion, that's what we tend to espouse. You know what I'm saying? So in this particular documentary, I meant to have the girl's name, but the interviewer was asking Walter about the statistics showing about HIV infection amongst Black men. And one of the things that she had stated to him was that the behavior itself is not different between Blacks and white or whatever, but how come HIV infection is always on the rise in Black men, and et cetera. And Walter's response was that we need to take that the study and throw it in the garbage, because he said, he talked to people across the world and this, that, and the other, and everyone he's talked to said that in most relationships, the partners don't want them to use condoms, and et cetera, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to challenge that, because one of the things that we have to look at is this. There's a study that's done that suggests, and this is across the board in sexualities and sexual orientations, that in low and impoverished communities where jobs and education and lack of resources and economic development and empowerment are scarce, that in those particular elements that sex thrives. You know, a lot of we have a lot of people having a lot of children out of wedlock, and sex becomes the vehicle. It becomes the avenue. It's almost like it's just a way to pass time, according to how this particular research is being displayed. I don't have the direct numbers or whatever, but I'm giving you the gist of it. You can Google that if you don't want to take my word for it. Google it, and you will understand. They just did this. This is 2018, so I want to say within the last 4 years that this study had come out about urban development and urban cities and impoverished areas and stuff, because it targeted Black folks, but it said impoverished because also our Caucasian counterparts are in that same bandwagon. But they're suggesting that sex becomes the pastime. And oftentimes it is my opinion or my thought processes that we tend to use sex as a vehicle. You know, oftentimes that there happens to be a way that we feel alive, we feel wanted, we feel desired, we feel like we're taken seriously. A lot of us, hey, folks thrive in that era. You know, we have become a people where sexual prowess has become a point of refuge. That's a badge of honor. So oftentimes you see this within communities like this, and this is how it thrives. So if that there is a root or a catalyst, then it serves to only take it to the next step, that folks end up in these particular kinds of relationships or whatever, and they let their sexual prowess or their sexual identity become the identity that folks end up knowing. We hear all the time, we have, you know, you got the hoochie mamas, you got the this, you got the that. We see it on Jerry Springer, you see it on Maury Povich and all this in the reality shows. Everybody's going around fucking, and nobody's taking accountability or responsibility for their actions. You know what I'm saying? Even to our heteroattractional counterparts, let's just talking about men alone. You know, I made this allusion on some radio show before that we have a lot of people, men in particular, where, you know, the whole idea or the understanding of what being masculine and what being a male is that because I was able to produce children, as opposed to say or speak to my manhood. Okay. And here we have on Iyanla, the child that got 16 baby mamas and 34 children. You know, what sense does that make? Now, to cross-reference that, or to give an example, because I'm talking about the LGBT community, you know, here it's still the same as far as sexual prowess and sexual understanding and sexual satisfaction and identity and carried on, honey. If you ain't sitting up there, you know, we dance to the song, Don't Want No Short Dick Man, and carrying on and shit like that. We have a number of things, the porn industry, this industry, you know, we have all this kind of stuff that is very salacious and tells us, honey, that the man, honey, he, you know, Black men are this, and if you got to be strong and virile, and you ain't no man if you can't snag this, and okay, hell, my milkshake bring the boys to the yard and all that old bullshit. And so because we have these kinds of things that completely and always infiltrate our psyche, we start to believe that is true. And so now the point that Walter was making as far as folks not wanting to be protective and not wanting to use condoms, and this is something that they strive to and want to do, and this, that, and the other. Oftentimes, here's my opinion again, and this is just a theory that I'm working on, because in my own life, I found this to be true for me. And I'm sure that in like-minded people, as I've had discussions and stuff, I found that to be the root element that folks won't talk about. And oftentimes, it's the fear of rejection, the fear of not being loved, the fear of not being taken seriously, the fear of not being wanted or desired because of whatever self-esteem issues one have. You know, I'm a big man, you know, I'm 6'4" and I'm 300 pounds. Okay. So with that, and then, you know, because of my age, I'm 48 years young, you know, so we have a number of things that tends to play with your psyche that goes along with sexual activity, sexual identity, and carried on. You know, hell, at 48, sometimes I still find myself competing with my 25-year-old self, you know, because what I did at 25, honey, I could still do, but maybe not do the way that I did back in the day. So oftentimes they're trying to make that connection, to accept to accept certain things and to accept changes about my life and carrying on, that there proves to be an issue. Okay. And I think oftentimes that, yes, what he was saying as far as folks wanting to do this, that, and the other, they don't care about this, they don't care about that. I think that was a generalization, but it has some kind of merit because oftentimes it is rooted in unhappiness. It is rooted in a lot of beliefs from the church and carrying on. A lot of folks still believe that they're going to burn in hell and that kind of jazz. So why not go out of here with a bang? You know, if I'm a burn in hell anyway, then I might as well do what I'm gonna do to be happy and this, that, and the other. And oftentimes it causes us to have frivolous decisions and we do not make educated decisions. We put ourselves at risk. We put ourselves in these particular circumstances that may not be the most healthy. And then here's the other thing. It's hot. Okay. Let's talk about the complete carnality of it. Oftentimes, folks are attracted to the lust of it, the hotness. You know, oh my God, this is going to be so that way. We done fantasized about a scene, you know. And so because we in that fantasy, we think the fantasy is going to sustain us. And oftentimes we get caught up there. And then when it's time to deal in the reality is, honey, no, life still goes on and you fucked up. So now you got to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? And then oftentimes in a fucked up decision, then it becomes you now either punishing yourself or trying to get over how do I right or wrong. And so then it becomes this whole big old circle. And that there is where I think a lot of this plays into. You know what I'm saying? With LGBT children, particularly black gay men, I'm speaking because this is my community. Oftentimes we body shame, we age shame, we dick shame and carrying on because of faults and lacks and things of that nature. So when it comes down to sexual proclivities and sexual performance and sexual satisfaction, if I get somebody who says, hey, I'm into you, you know, I don't want to run the risk of throwing them away or taking a chance that they're not going to like me, or they may say no, or they may talk about me because my stamina wasn't this or this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of those things is what we have to deal with out here on the streets and that nature. So for Walter's comment, it has some merit. But again, I believe that he generalizes a lot, and he comes across very, very, very disheartening because of what the community represents. You know, you got all of those children who want to sit down there and negate what seems to be mindful activity, or not mindful activity, what seems to be rational thinking. Let me put it that way. Okay. And they just completely destroy all that in order to have a good time, because they start to live in the good time. I think the good time is what it is. And see, this is what's going to lead me into one of the things that I believe they didn't talk about as far as why HIV infection is still rampant in black communities and things of that nature. Tori Cooper in the program, hey Tori, was saying that the statistics are proving that black men, particularly black gay men, 1 in 2 black men are expected to contract the HIV infection, okay, the virus. All right, why is that when she says statistics are showing that for our Caucasian counterparts, it's 1 in 11, okay? Part of that is because we do not talk about sexual addiction and mental health with all of this. Okay, that's one of the components I think that's really missing from this particular documentary. Sexual addiction, a lot of folks don't believe it. They don't believe that it's real. They don't believe that folks are out here running amok and carrying on the way that they do. But I'm telling you, as someone who deals with sexual addiction, who admits that sex is my addiction, or I like to say was, because it doesn't drive me like it used to and carrying on, although I still have bouts of dealing with my own mental state of it. But at the same time, I know that it's real, okay? And a lot of times I believe that here in our community, it is not addressed. or it has a lackluster. Everybody joke about it. Oh, I'm a nympho, honey, And we in this world where to get your freak card, you got to be the super freak nowadays in order for anything to be real or for you to be taken seriously. And again, like I said, your sexual identity, particularly in the community, it seems to what flourishes now. I'm a bad bitch, honey, because I could put my leg on the shiffer robe and do a 6 o'clock kick up and put my foot on the ceiling, bitch, and you could drill and grill and this, that, and the other. When I'm sitting here sucking the dick over here, I got this one over here, I got the child. So and the more outrageous it becomes, the better your freakness is. And so now you become a commodity. You become the person that's sought after, or you become the person that everybody talk about. And then oftentimes you become all of the above, because the same bitch that want to talk about you, call you the super freak, the nasty motherfucker, the this, that, and the other, is the same one that night come rat tap tapping on your door, honey, because they done heard that you done got the bomb this and the bomb ass, you got the bomb head and blah, 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 blah. And then they want to try it out. Oftentimes sexual addiction goes hand in hand because some folks are on drugs and they and the drug thing, it's a two-part with this drug thing. Those who are taking drugs for escape and, who are chasing the drug and carrying on because that's a whole different culture and a way of life, because they don't know how to cope with life skills and this, that, and the other. That's the crackheads that we know. Those who are out there, just out there. And that's what some of us seem as though they're too far gone and carrying on. Those are the ones who we already suspect are HIV positive, the ones that are out there selling their bodies and carrying on for the drug. And most of us tend not to be bothered with them for the most part, okay? Then you have those who are the partiers. You party and play, okay? Yes, and okay, because I'm drugging and carrying on, this here opens me up. And it lets my inhibitions go so that I can be the freak, that's going to sit down there and let these 20 guys run a train on me, honey. I'm the life of the party. Bitch, I done had all these motherfuckers up in here. Bitch, shit, and all of that. Okay, so we have allowed the drug culture to come in and infiltrate because we think that's having a good time. We think, well, I won't say think. I'm going to say that there is the reality for some. A lot of folks feel as though in order for them to have a good time, that these things are required. And that includes marijuana for those, and I know y'all are going to hate me for that, but that includes marijuana as well, because hell, I've been to several, I have several sex partners or whatever, honey, that it don't go down until after they hit that blunt, so that they can feel relaxed and, get into their zone and this, that, and the other. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just pointing that out to say that these are the factors that we have to deal with, because oftentimes these are some of the things that we do not look at when it comes to why people are not making educated decisions versus foolish choices when it comes down to their own sexual health. Another reason that I believe what's missing from this particular documentary is that, again, going to this mental health issue, we have a lot of people who are on sexually suppression medication. And what I mean by that is they are on psychotropics. They, the Ritalins, the ADD, the attention deficit disorder drugs. You have many folks who are manic depressive or bipolar that got those particular drugs. You got those, hell, life doesn't set in. So folks who are diabetic, high blood pressure, this, that, and other. All these particular drugs that people are taking, the side effect is sexual dysfunction. Okay, so you got folks in my age bracket and some younger, okay, who are on these particular medicines or whatever, and their dick don't get hard or stay hard or whatever the case may be. So now, when it comes to condom uses and condom appropriation, oftentimes they ain't thinking about no damn condom when it took me 5 minutes to get this motherfucker up. So why am I going to now fight with a condom? And if I fight with the condom, I got to start this process all over again. Okay, so then it becomes the whole idea of using, you have your your Viagra, your Levitra, your Cialis and carrying on, which have now become recreational drugs for the young kids, which means that if you're using it and you're not supposed to use it, by the time you get my age, sweetheart, your dick ain't gonna work properly. Okay. Then becomes the use of cock rings and things of that nature to keep you stiff and this, that, and the other. For those who go more morbid than that, I've heard of folks who take shots in their dick and carry on to keep it up and all this, that, and the other. For those of you who use poppers, yes, I'm talking to you. For those of you who use poppers, do y'all realize that a lot of that shit is bleach that you are inhaling? Yeah, I said it. Okay. They won't list those ingredients on there, honey, but I used to work in a sex shop, child. I know that some of the ingredients in that shit is bleach and ammonia and carrying on that you are inhaling. Yes, it gives you a buzz, it takes you there, and this, that, and the other, but baby, it fucks you up on the inside. So your dick ain't gonna work over time. So now what? So we have to deal with that as far as HIV prevention is concerned. Every time I go take an HIV test, and I've been doing this since I was 16 years old, I had an HIV scare then. I've had a few more since then, and praise God that I am one of the ones who could stand here and say that I am HIV negative. This is not a slam to those who are positive. I just happen to have been the one that have not been infected when I should have been a long time ago. But for whatever reasons, I'm not. And I make sure that I keep it that way. And this is not to say that I'm perfect in my sexual pleasures and things of that nature. I don't always use condoms, but then again, I don't always have penetrative sex these days. So, and I'm very forthcoming with my business, so I don't give a fuck about whoever want to sit down there and say, damn, I don't care. Because see, this is how the information gets out there. Okay, you have to be real about it. So in my own walk and in how I carry my own sexual health or whatever. All right. And as I was saying, we do not look into the idea of the psychotropic drugs that having sexual side effects. And oftentimes, because of these sexual side effects, people are not using condoms because hell, it takes so long to get to operational and carrying on to adding a condom and adding another vice into the sexual play becomes cumbersome. Okay. So that there is something that was not included in the piece that I think that they need to look at. I really think that the CDC needs to do a campaign on that because that's something that they do not consider. Every time I go take an HIV test, I sit down there and I ask that question all the time. Has the CDC started looking into psychotropic drugs and all these other different kinds of drugs and things because they have sexual side effects? And with sexual side effects comes the whole mental play of, oh my God, I'm less than, I can't do, and this, that, and the other. So that there's another piece that is missing from that particular, the Guardian's expose on HIV in African American community. Let me go here because I want to touch on the whole idea of relationship versus sex partners. Now, I think this was, I won't say oxymoronic or hypocritical because how could you talk about the African American relationship and try to compare it with white folks and our Caucasian counterparts when at the same time you say, well, that's not my community, I don't know about what they do. And then when the statistics and the interview was saying, well, according to statistics, you know, our Caucasian counterparts are X, Y, and Z, you say, Walter, oh, well, I don't know about them because I don't hang out with them and I don't know about the white culture and this, that, and the other. But yet at the same time, you want to sit down there and say that the reason why HIV is so rampant is because we as black gay folks or black gay men in particular choose to have hookups versus relationships. And I'm going to disagree with you on that because I think oftentimes what it is that we settle for the hookup because we don't have the relationships. Okay. And then that goes down and I'm doing a series on the radio show dealing with that because I really believe that relationships is not what people want. I don't think everybody's honest with that. I think what they're looking for is courtship. A lot of people don't want to do the work it requires to have a relationship, to make it grow, to make it prosper. Outside of saying that, okay, I got my boo and I got somebody who I can fuck on the regular and I go out to don't go hang out with, and we going to the movies, we going to out to dinner, we going traveling and carrying on. Who my boo could spend his coin, honey, and make me look good. Okay. We have all of that, but none of us have really. I won't say none of us. That's not correct. I would say many of us have not sat down and really looked at what is required to have a full onset relationship. Many of us are not honest and saying that I want to be monogamous. Okay, because oftentimes people want relationships, but they want to be able to have someone they can call a constant, yet at the same time still do what they want to do. They want their freedom and they want to be in a relationship. And so then we have many different types of relationships. You got, polyamory comes into play. You got open relationships. You got the bear communities where you have this person and that person, and they bring in their little sex partners, their little cubs, and these are the only people that we're going to have sex with outside of ourselves, and then we have sex with them. It becomes a whole big old to-do. And everybody tried to build their own little harems and all that kind of shit. So we have to be honest about what relationships are first. So again, your points have merit to a degree, but only to a degree because you generalize so much. And then when we start to look at it and start to break down the nuances, then it becomes a whole bigger picture. It's just like an onion, honey. When you go to cut an onion, child, an onion has many, 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 many different layers. And sometimes, child, in order for you to get to the piece of the onion, you have to peel it back. And what you thought was a piece of the onion might be skin. It might be just a layer, honey. And oftentimes that's what happens. So in our community, we have a lot that we need to talk about. We have a lot that we need to be honest about. And oftentimes when we have these kind of conversations, most of the time, those who show up are the ones who are already there. We're already in the conversation processes of it. We're already there. The people who need to be there are the ones that don't want to talk about it. They're the ones running from it. They're running from it. They don't want to face the responsibility. They don't want to deal with the reality of it. Everybody have, the coming out process is something that we need to look at, because still we have allowed ourselves to believe that once we are out that, we have to find ourselves. And so we get very rambunctious in our behavior. And in that, there's a trial and error period. We all have to learn it, and we all get it at different times. But at the same time, we're not monitoring them. We're not mentoring them the way that we ought to, because most of the time the mentors become the predators and all of those kinds of things. So we have a lot that we have to deal with in this in order to make it work. And then we have to get realistic on what we want to see. You know what I'm saying? We have to stop glamorizing the whole idea that it's the whole divide and conquer thing, honey. Get as much dick and ass as you possibly can, or I'm a bad bitch because of this, that, and the other. We have to stop glamorizing that and take responsibility in it. And it's not to say that living a single life for those of us who are single, it's not to say that you can't enjoy your life or whatever. And it's not to say that if you're sexually fluid that's wrong. You have to understand that in this, there's a sense of responsibility. And if you're not going to do it for somebody else, at least do it for yourself. What is that to go to the doctor, to get your checkups, to get that? And as black men, now that is something that we as black men are horrible with, period. Regardless of your orientation, black men are going to the doctor, child, is just like Superman and kryptonite in most cases. It seems as though we do not know how to do that. Now, that may be due to economics. That may be because we don't think it's masculine enough, or we may be embarrassed to talk about stuff that we have to deal with on a regular basis. Whatever that is, we have to overcome those particular things and get there. You may not be comfortable with talking with the doctor. And a lot of us don't like having women doctors, because hell, if you're having problems with your dick and got to go and carry on and talk about all those kinds of things, you may be embarrassed, you may be uncomfortable. Hell, you may be uncomfortable because it's a male doctor and you might find yourself attracted to him, and all of those particular things. It becomes a huge hang up. So what we have to do is look at this from that particular standpoint. And once we get that going, I believe we can then approach this very realistically. Okay, so yeah, that there's what I'm going to say about the this particular video because I really believe it is a wonderful tool. One of my mentors, Elder Claude, he was featured in there when he was talking about what it was back 30 years ago and things of dealing with HIV and AIDS in our particular culture. And also, let me say this too, because when he did that reference point, I really believe that one of the things that we have to really tackle is that these new babies don't have that point of reference that many of us had from years ago. When HIV was the dismal thing that it once was, when everybody was dropping like flies because it was relatively new and nobody knew how to handle it, nobody knew what to do with it. We all lost millions of people and folks have died around us. They were here today and 2 days later they were dead. We're going to funerals and carrying on. A lot of these new babies don't have that point of reference. So they don't know what the ugly side of it. Okay, they don't know what it was to go through side effects and carrying on of the medicines and carrying on when every time you turned around, you was running back and forth to the doctors because the side effects of the medicines were taking you down and pulling your hair out and you were losing weight rapidly. They don't have that point of reference. All they have now is, oh, if I'm HIV positive, I go get my meds. As long as I'm taking my meds, I'm good. Okay. We have this piece of information now that once you become undetectable, that you cannot pass it on. Now, again, here's something that we have to look into because that was the piece of this puzzle that I was upset about because I didn't think that was exactly true. But after researching it, they're saying that once you become HIV positive and your viral load is undetectable and is measured as undetectable by your healthcare professional from the test that they're taking, that the threat of you passing it on becomes zero, that you cannot transmit the virus. Now that there is something new for me. I don't know how long this has been in the rotation, but they're teaching that now. But what happens now is we have a lot of people who, we're talking about why is everybody going raw sex and this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. Well, we are in a culture now to where they're telling you, okay, because your viral load is undetectable, you can't get it. We got this PrEP stuff that I'm still not sold on PrEP. Now, I'm one of those children. I'm not sold on it yet because there's something about it that it's too convenient right now. It's a piece missing, I swear to you. And maybe call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but something with that just does not gel well with me because they're too busy trying to get everybody on it. And yet I really believe there's something they ain't telling us. Because if it is Truvada, if the medicine itself is Truvada, which is an HIV med, it's not going to work if the strand of HIV that you contracted has built up an immunity to Truvada. Because remember, HIV, honey, folks get reinfected. An HIV positive person can reinfect another HIV positive person and they create a new strand. The strand mutates. So if it mutates, then it becomes immune to the medicines that both of those people were taking. And if Truvada is one of those particular medicines, then the PrEP ain't going to work against that particular strand of HIV. At least that's my thinking. So if I'm wrong, then I need all of you out there who understands this, bring the information. See, this is where the educational component comes in. Bring the information so we can look at it and look at it the right way. Because everybody keep offering this PrEP stuff for free, and yet nobody's saying who's going to pay for it after I get on it. See, now, what, you take it, you got a 28, 21-day supply, you get it in your system or whatever, and then it's supposed to be what, you're supposed to build up these immunities or whatever. But what after that? Is it just 21 days? Is it further than that? Do you constantly take this or whatever? Do you take a break and this, that, and the other? Because if it's, with the HIV meds, if you take a holiday, that's what we called it back in the day. If you took a holiday on the drugs, then the virus was able to then mutate and could build a resistance to the drug or whatever. So it's a lot that I'm not understanding about that PrEP stuff, and I'm not sold on it yet, the way they're trying to push it on folk. But these are part of the elements that we have and why, promiscuity has risen as far as I'm concerned, because a lot of people are under the impression, well, hell, I just get my pills, and once I take my pills, I'm good. We have not talked about side effects of these medicines. We have not talked about what it means to maintain the health and carrying on. We all know exercise and diet, honey, is an ongoing problem around the world. So in talking about those kinds of things, these are the elements that need to be featured so that we can make educated decisions. So I think those are some of the things that were missing from this particular documentary. And I'm hoping that in the future that we have these particular discussions. But for those of you who are in it, thank you for sharing your time. Walter, you know me and you will bump heads on these kinds of things all the time because I love your passion and I hear where you're going. Again, I tell you this all the time, child. The way how you do it, baby, you don't care about upsetting the people, and that's fine. At the same time, the information out there, it becomes dangerous because it bumps heads. And I'm going to compare you to a white supremacist or somebody like that who sit up there and fight with folks when we sit up there trying to say one thing, but you're so hell-bent on this to where you refuse to open up and say, okay, you know what, let's look at it from all sides. Still have your particular viewpoint, but you refuse to look at it from all sides and you shut down every other side, just like you did in the interview, honey. No, we could take that and throw it away, honey, because that's not right. No, sweetie, the woman just told you. Okay, the research is saying this, and you said, no, take it, throw it away. No, honey, no. Let's open and expand that so that we know that all of this is at the table too. Still hold your position, but open up your mind or open up the process to where we can say, okay, that there is a factor. If that's a factor, then it has to be looked at from a particular standpoint. So that there is my take on that. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it in the box or drop it down below or email me at bigmeach@dishingt.com or go to the website at dishingt.com and carry it on and get at me. And we will go from there. I am going to tackle this on the radio show, Dishing Tea with Big Meach on Blog Talk Radio Network. So be sure to follow me on all of my media platforms. I am Big Meach or Big Meach 1 on many different platforms, and we'll go from there. So I'll talk with you guys soon, honey. Finish your crumpets, honey, because the tea has just been dished.
Caution. The tea is hot. Blow it off first, okay? Dishing tea with Big Meach.